My name is Emma Collins. I'm 27 years old and I live in Manchester, England. Before we begin, I'm curious, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. I never thought one ordinary night could quietly rewrite my entire life. And if I'm being honest, I didn't even realize I was falling in love. It started the way most important things do, completely unnoticed. Ethan and I had been friends for almost 6 years. That's longer than most relationships last these days. We met at university, two awkward strangers stuck in the same group project. He was the kind of guy who spoke only when necessary, calm, observant, almost invisible in a crowded room. And me. I was the opposite, talkative, overthinking everything, always filling silence because I didn't know how to sit in it. Funny how life pairs people like that. At first, we weren't close. Just classmates who exchanged notes and complained about deadlines. But slowly, something shifted. Late night study sessions turned into long conversations. Coffee breaks turned into inside jokes. And before I knew it, Ethan became part of my everyday life, not in a dramatic, movie-like way, but in the quiet, comforting kind of way. The kind you don't question. He knew everything about me. My weird habit of overanalyzing texts, my love for rainy afternoons, the way I pretended to be confident even when I was, and I knew him too, or at least I thought I did. If I'm being honest, Ethan wasn't the kind of guy I imagined myself falling for. He wasn't loud, he didn't flirt, he didn't chase attention, but he was steady, reliable. The kind of person who showed up every single time, and maybe that's what made him dangerous in a way I didn't understand back then. Years passed. We graduated, got jobs, started building our own lives, but somehow we never drifted apart. Friday coffees became a tradition, movie nights turned into routine, and people started noticing. Are you two like a thing? I can't count how many times I heard that, and every time we'd laugh it off, just friends. That's what we always said, just friends, simple, safe, easy. But looking back now, I wonder if we were ever really just friends. There were moments, small ones, the kind you don't pay attention to until it's too late. Like the way he remembered the smallest details about me, or how he always noticed when something was off even when I said I was fine. Or the way he'd look at me sometimes, like he was trying to say something but didn't know how. And then there was that night, the night everything started to change. It was raining. Of course it was. Manchester has a way of setting the mood whether you want it or not. I had just gone through a breakup. Nothing dramatic, just one of those relationships that slowly fades until there's nothing left. But it still hurt, more than I expected, so I did what I always did. I called Ethan. He didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate, he just said, "I'll be there," and he was within 30 minutes. Standing outside my apartment, slightly soaked, holding 2 cups of coffee like it was the most normal thing in the world. That moment, I'll never forget it, because something about it felt different. He looked at me, really looked at me, not like a friend checking in, but like someone who cared maybe a little too much. We sat on the floor of my living room, no music, no distractions. Just the sound of rain tapping against the windows, and for once I didn't try to fill the silence. "I thought he was the one," I whispered. Ethan didn't say anything right away. He just sat there listening, like he always did. "You deserve someone who sees you," he finally said, softly, carefully. I laughed a little. "Maybe I'm just hard to love." He shook his head. And what he said next, it stayed with me longer than I expected. "No, Emma, you're just easy to misunderstand." I don't know why that hit me the way it did, but it did. Something shifted in that moment, subtle, almost invisible, but real, and then something happened that I didn't expect, something that changed everything between us. Because as the night grew quieter and the space between us felt smaller, Ethan did something he had never done before. He reached for my hand. And for the first time in 6 years, neither of us pulled away. My heart started racing, not like before, not like with anyone else. This felt different, scary, real. I looked at him, searching for an explanation, but his expression, it wasn't casual, it wasn't accidental, it was intentional. And in that moment, I realized something I had been avoiding for years. Maybe we were never just friends, but before I could say anything, before I could even understand what I was feeling, Ethan spoke. And what he said next changed everything between us. I still remember that moment, my hand in his, rain tapping against the windows, and the world shrinking until it was just the two of us. But then he whispered something I wasn't ready for. "I've wanted this for a long time." My stomach dropped. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to pull away, tell him we were friends, that this was crazy, that I wasn't ready. But another part, the part that had been waiting for years without admitting it, froze, too afraid and too eager all at once. If I'm being honest, I didn't expect him to feel the same way I secretly did. I'd spent years convincing myself that Ethan was untouchable. The friend you can laugh with, cry with, trust with everything, but never love. And yet here he was, confessing feelings I'd never dared to imagine. We sat there for what felt like hours. Not talking much, just letting the moment linger. I caught myself staring at him, noticing details I'd never paid attention to before. The curve of his smile when he was nervous, the way his eyes softened in the dim light. The slight tremble in his hand when he finally reached for mine. And yet confusion grew, because if he felt the same way, why now? Why after all this time? Was it the breakup I'd just gone through? Was it just comfort? Or was it real? I didn't know how to respond. I don't know what to say. I finally admitted, my voice barely a whisper. He smiled, a soft, almost sad smile. You don't have to say anything, and that was it. We sat in silence again, our hands still intertwined, but my mind racing faster than ever. I tried to convince myself to pull back, to act like nothing had changed. But my heart wouldn't listen. Days passed, but nothing went back to normal. Every text felt heavier. Every laugh felt layered with meaning. Every time I saw him, my stomach fluttered in a way I hadn't felt with anyone before. And worse, I couldn't stop wondering if he felt the same. Have you ever felt that? That terrifying, thrilling uncertainty, where you want to know everything but you're scared of the answer. That was me, every day. Then came the first misunderstanding. I had suggested a coffee meetup with him after work, a casual thing I thought, but when I arrived, Ethan was with someone else, a girl, laughing, close, comfortable. I froze. And suddenly my mind went everywhere. Had I imagined it all? Was I reading too much into things? Or had he already moved on? I tried to act calm, pretended it didn't bother me. Smiled, waved, and walked past, but inside it hurt, like a slow, quiet ache that I couldn't shake. That night I called my best friend. I think I messed up, I admitted, voice trembling. I think I like him, but he's with someone else. Maybe he's always been with someone else. And as I said it out loud, I realized I was terrified, terrified of losing him. Terrified of never telling him how I really felt. Terrified of staying in the friend zone forever. The next day, Ethan messaged me, just a short text. Can we talk? My heart jumped. But my mind screamed, be careful, don't ruin everything. When we met, he looked serious, almost unreadable. I need to clear something up, he said. I nodded, heart pounding. I wasn't with her, he continued. We were just coworkers. I think I was hoping you'd call me first. My heart stopped, because in that moment, I realized I had been reading the wrong story. The jealousy I felt wasn't about him moving on, it was about the thought of losing him to anyone else. And then he reached for my hand again. That same hand I hadn't wanted to let go of since that night. I like you, Emma, he said, voice low and steady. I've liked you for years. Time seemed to freeze. I didn't know whether to cry, laugh, or scream. All I could do was look at him, really look at him, and feel my heart finally catching up with my mind. But just as I was about to tell him everything, my phone buzzed, a message from my ex, and suddenly my past collided with my present. What would you do if your heart was split between what you wanted and what you thought was safe? I froze, not knowing whether to turn to Ethan or back to the person I thought I had left behind. And that hesitation, that tiny pause, might have been the biggest mistake of my life. I stood frozen, phone in hand, heart hammering like it wanted to escape my chest. Ethan was right there, his hand still holding mine, eyes searching mine for answers. And yet my fingers hovered over the screen, trembling. The message from my ex, simple, harmless, he said. But somehow it felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. And in that instant, I realized how much fear had controlled me. Fear of rejection, fear of ruining a friendship. Fear of admitting what I truly felt. I looked at Ethan, really looked at him. The soft curve of his smile, the way his eyes softened in the light, the subtle tension in his jaw, he was waiting. Waiting for me to choose, and for the first time I understood. It wasn't about the past. It wasn't about what I thought I should do. It was about him. I don't care, I whispered, finally letting the words tumble out. It's you, it's always been you. His eyes widened and then he smiled. That smile that made my chest ache, the one that made me feel like I was exactly where I belonged. And then it happened. He leaned in slowly, cautiously, giving me every chance to pull away. But I didn't, because for the first time I didn't want to. Our lips met, softly at first, testing the waters. Then something shifted. The caution melted away, replaced by years of longing and unspoken words. And in that moment, I realized how much time we had wasted. How many moments I had let slip away because I was too afraid to feel. We pulled apart, breathless, foreheads touching. I was so scared, I admitted, voice shaking. Scared you didn't feel the same. Scared of ruining everything. He shook his head, eyes dark with emotion. I was scared too, he confessed. Scared you'd never see me that way. Scared of losing you before I even tried. It felt like the world had tilted, like every clock had stopped ticking, and for the first time in years, everything felt right. And yet, life has a way of complicating even the most perfect moments. The next morning, I woke to a text, not from Ethan, from my ex. Can we talk? I think I made a mistake. My chest tightened. Because just as I had finally stepped into something real, something beautiful, the past was demanding my attention. And for the first time, I questioned everything. Do I confront the past? Or do I take the risk and finally let myself fall completely with Ethan? I tried to tell myself it was simple. Ethan had always been there. He had always cared. He had always been steady, unwavering, constant, but love isn't simple, and fear has a way of creeping in at the worst moments. Later that night, we met again. I wanted to tell him, to explain, to be honest about everything. But when I saw him, waiting with that same soft smile, something inside me snapped, because I realized I didn't want to share him. I wanted him entirely. And yet I couldn't shake the worry gnawing at my mind. What's wrong? He asked softly, his thumb brushing across the back of my hand. I looked down, fidgeting, struggling to find words. I don't know if I'm ready, I admitted, voice barely audible. Everything's complicated. Ethan's expression faltered for the first time. And then he said something that broke me in half. Emma, I don't want complicated. I want real. I want us. I looked up, and in his eyes, I saw everything I had been too scared to admit. I saw patience, hope, and love, and I realized he had been waiting for me all along. But just as I was about to respond, my phone buzzed again. A new message. And this time, it wasn't just from my ex. It was from someone I never expected, someone from Ethan's past. And suddenly, the perfect moment felt fragile, like glass slipping through my fingers. That night, I sat on my bed staring at my phone, heart pounding like it wanted to escape my chest. The message, it was from Laura, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. She wasn't rude, she wasn't angry, she just said, "Hey, I heard about you too. I just wanted to say I hope he makes you happy." He deserves it, I blinked, read it again, then reread it, and suddenly my mind was spinning, because if she knew about us, then Ethan's feelings had to be more serious than I realized. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or panicked. I had finally let myself fall, really fall, and now the past and the present were colliding in ways I didn't understand. When Ethan arrived, I tried to act normal, tried to be casual, but my hands were shaking, my heart racing. He noticed immediately. Of course he did, he always noticed. What's wrong? He asked, eyes searching mine. I hesitated. Should I tell him about Laura, about the message, about how terrified I was of losing him, even before we officially began? I got a message, I said finally, holding up my phone. He read it and then his expression changed. Not angry, not upset, but thoughtful. Laura, he whispered. I nodded. And then for the first time, Ethan's calm, steady demeanor faltered. You're scared, he said. I froze. Yes, I admitted. I'm scared of ruining this. Scared of messing up, scared of losing you before we even start. He reached for my hand again, his touch grounding me. Emma, listen, he said, voice low. I've waited years for this, for us. I don't care about the past, I don't care about anyone else. I care about you, only you, and yet my mind wouldn't stop racing, because love isn't always just about words. Sometimes it's about timing, about choices, about trusting your heart when everything around you feels uncertain. I looked at him, really looked at him, the way he was holding me. The gentleness in his eyes, the patience in his smile, and I realized the only choice I could make was to let myself feel. I want you, I whispered, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. His smile broke like sunlight through clouds. I've wanted you for years, he admitted. Every day, we sat there hand in hand, letting the silence settle between us. The kind of silence that doesn't need words because everything was already understood. And then Ethan leaned closer. But just as our lips were about to meet again, the doorbell rang. I froze. We both froze because in that moment, I realized life doesn't pause for perfect timing. I didn't know who it was. And suddenly, I feared this night, the night that was supposed to change everything, might slip away before it even began. I walked slowly to the door, heart in my throat. I opened it, and standing there was someone I never expected. My ex. He smiled, that same casual, familiar smile. Can we talk? He asked. And just like that, the world I had started building with Ethan began to crumble, because now I had to make a choice. Do I turn back to what I thought I lost? Or do I finally step forward into something real, into something I'd been too scared to admit for years? I felt Ethan's hand on my shoulder, warm, steady, waiting. And in that moment, I realized love isn't about being safe. It's about risking everything for the one person who makes your heart impossible to ignore. But could I take that risk? Or would fear and the weight of the past keep me from what I truly wanted? I stood frozen at the door, my ex's familiar face smiling back at me. Ethan's hand remained on my shoulder, warm, steady, grounding me, and for a moment I felt torn in two directions: the past, the present, fear, desire. I took a deep breath. "This isn't the time," I said softly, my voice trembling. I need to be honest with myself first." My ex's expression shifted, confusion, maybe even hurt, but I didn't care. Because in that moment, I realized something I had been avoiding for years. I turned to Ethan and really looked at him, not as my friend, not as the guy who had always been there, but as someone I could love, someone I wanted to love, someone I didn't want to imagine my life without. "I choose you," I whispered. His eyes widened for a fraction of a second, and then relief. Joy, a light breaking through years of hesitation. "I've waited for you to say that," he admitted, voice low, almost trembling. "I've wanted this for years." Every day, we stepped inside together, closing the door on everything that wasn't us. No past, no fear, just this, the moment we had been too scared to reach for before. That night, we talked for hours, not about who we were, not about who we used to be, but about who we wanted to be together. And for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future with him, one where laughter, love, and even heartbreak would be shared. If I'm being honest, it wasn't perfect. There were fears. There were insecurities, moments when doubt crept in, but there was also honesty, patience, and a love that had been quietly growing for years, finally allowed to bloom. I realized then some love isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, patient, steady. It's in the late night conversations, the little gestures, the hands held when the world feels heavy. And sometimes it just waits for the right moment. Looking back now, I wish I had said yes sooner. I wish I hadn't doubted myself. I wish I had realized earlier that love isn't about safety. It's about courage. That night changed everything, not with fireworks or grand declarations, but with a hand held, a whisper, and the courage to finally let myself feel. And in letting go of fear, I found something I never expected, something real, something lasting. Something unforgettable. Have you ever had a moment that quietly changed your life? That one night that shifted everything, leaving you breathless and full of hope? Because for me, that night with Ethan, it wasn't just a turning point. It was the beginning of everything I had been waiting for, and I knew, deep down, we would never be just friends again.